everyone, and welcome to the Great Harry Potter Reread. We're finally back after, I don't know, longer than a year, maybe. This time we're discussing the first 7 chapters of Prisoner of Azkaban. This episode will contain spoilers, probably for most of the Harry Potter books, but probably not book 7. I'm Nadia, and today I'm joined by Paul Plight.
Yes, that is me, Paul. Pod's Plight on the forums.
Casey, Blue-Eyed Queen.
Yes, that's me.
Sorry, I'm just reading the names that are on my
I am Casey, Blue-Eyed Queen.
Alias.
Hey, this is Zack.
And drownedsnow.
Hey, I'm not dead anymore. It's Adam. Drownedsnow on the forums.
And we'll probably be joined later by inkasrain. So, do we want to jump straight into the chapters, or do we have anything to say about book 3?
It was really fun getting into book 3 again, because this is where I feel like the first 2 are like really read more as kids' books, whereas book 3 you start to get a little bit more, since Harry's 13, you get a little bit more older language, I guess.
Yeah, and the world starts to come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in that same way that you're talking about, Casey, it feels like the kind of emotional kind of struggles kind of become more clear in this book, whereas it's very childlike and the concerns are kind of smaller scale, at least on that level. You know, obviously it's still life and death in those books, but the actual kind of things that Harry is dealing with get more advanced in this one, so that's very exciting.
Yeah, and this is probably my favorite book in the entire series, so I'm really looking forward to this. Okay, well, the first chapter is Outpost, and I believe that's Zack.
That's right. All right. Chapter 1, Owlpost. So, Harry Potter works on his Hogwarts summer homework under dead of night, the only time he can safely do it while he stays with his awful family members, the Dursleys, for another difficult summer. Harry reflects on one particularly painful moment this summer when his friend Ron Weasley tried and failed to properly operate a Feliton. As he is finishing his essay about the uselessness of witch burnings, Harry realizes that his 13th birthday has come without him noticing. His feelings over another disappointing birthday are interrupted by the arrival of 3 owls. The first from Hogwarts, the second being Errol, the Weasley's ancient and currently unconscious family owl, and the third being Hedwig, Harry's own. They carry him letters and presents from his friends. From Braun, Harry receives a newspaper clipping and letter about the 700 galleon Daily Prophet prize the Weasleys won, and the trip they took to Egypt as a result. He also receives a pocket sneakoscope, a device that detects any suspicious activity nearby. From Hermione Granger, he receives an iconically Hermione letter, including a comment about how she hopes that her 2 extra scrolls in her History of Magic essay aren't too much. He also receives a broomstick servicing kit. From Hagrid, Harry receives a cryptic letter and a book that tries to eat him. Harry also receives a letter from Hogwarts with a permission form to visit the wizarding village of Hogsmeade attached. Harry decides he will worry about the permission slip later and focuses instead on one of his first truly happy birthday moments. All right, so yeah, that's chapter 1. It's a pretty straightforward chapter. It's our first reintroduction to Harry after Chamber of Secrets, obviously, and he gets some nice birthday gifts, and he's actually able to really enjoy his birthday for once, which is cool.
How does the magical world have permission slips?
Yeah, it seems like you can just message their parents and ask them like automatically or something.
Right, and even still, it's like you've already given permission to go to this school where like stuff blows up and they might get transfigured and like potentially death. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, can they visit the school or can they visit the gift shop down in the village? Is basically what the permission slip is, and you're like, what? Seems a little silly.
Especially
they're
given
already
the fact
sent
that
into the
exactly the Forbidden Forest, right?
yeah, exactly. Which is
no
far
permission
more
slip needed
dangerous
for
than
that. You
Hogsmeade.
don't need to. They're not liable for anything that might happen.
Right.
Is Uncle Vernon mellowing out? Like, there are no bars on Harry's window anymore. He can let Hedwig out. It's like this is relative luxury compared to what he was doing last year.
I think he's losing his, like, like, I think that he's still scared of him, and I think he's even more scared of him now than he was before, but I think that they realize that they can't, like, there's only, like, a certain threshold that they can go to before, like, just making, like it's stupidly bad for Harry to go back to school. And
you think yeah.
Harry has much more access to a lot of resources that could make things hard for him, so he kind of has to lay off a bit, but...
And you do wonder if anyone ever came by and gave them a talking to, but probably not.
It is interesting, though, because, in some of the other books, we kind of have a plot device reason why the Dursleys are, like, less awful. Like in the second book, they don't know that he can't use magic outside of school, so he uses that to protect himself. And in the book after this, he talks about his godfather, Sirius Black, that we'll obviously learn about soon. But, yeah, it's definitely kind of strange that Vernon's not giving a crap when Harry has none of those same kind of defenses to use. But at least he locked all his stuff up, so that's something bad, I guess.
Even you can tell that this book is for slightly older children because there's no, like, I think in Chamber of Secrets we got like an entire summary of the first book in a couple of paragraphs in the first chapter, so you could remember what had happened before. We don't really get that here. You can tell, like, this isn't Harry's growing up, and so are the readers.
Well, also, as you get more and more books, you can't really realistically do recaps of the whole story so far as they keep going deeper into the series. You just kind of assume that if you're picking up book 4, you've read some of the previous ones.
Because this book came out in, like, the late 90s. The next one came out in, like, 2001 or something. And I think by that point, like, the movies had been out, right? The movie was 2001, I think. So
didn't the movie come out, like, around book 4?
After book 4.
It was after book 4. Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
But I think they were pretty popular by the time they got to the 4th book, where they were pretty popular.
Yeah, the 4th book was the first time that they had a simultaneous release in the UK and the US. Hi, guys. Hi.
Hi, Michal.
Hello.
Hi, Michal.
Hi.
So, my kind of, like, rereading this as an adult and kind of being a little bit more reading into the writing, and it's probably the answer to why, like, this is they're not getting as much of a recap is probably mostly because, like, this is an older, geared towards, like, growing up with people, and rather than, like, staying in, like, the 11 age group range with the first 2 books. But I'd like to think that Harry, after the first book, was like, wow, all this crazy shit happened. Oh my God, let's think about it all. And now, like, that 2 years of craziness has happened. He just kind of wants to be with his friends and move on from the past 2 years, as any 13-year-old would. So, yeah. But it's probably more than she's just writing it differently.
And I mean, also, like, this is, not to skip straight to the end, but this is the only book that doesn't involve a direct confrontation, with Voldemort or some part of Voldemort. So I think it's telling, that, like, I think this book is a good entry point if you wanted to jump in for some crazy reason and not read the first 2,
I wonder how common of an experience that was, that people read the latter books before reading the first ones. That doesn't seem like it would be very common.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but I don't know. Some people might.
I don't know. I'd be very annoyed if people started in the middle, because that would just be out of order.
Well, I think...
I know people who did, though.
Yeah, and maybe not with a smaller series, but you have to think there are people that turn out books for, like, crime novels and stuff like that, right? And people just pick up what they see on the book stand. So I think that's why a lot, like, the tradition of, like, okay, let's explain who this character is because there's been 10 books and we want you to jump right in, sort of thing. I think that's why that's there, because there are some people that do just jump into stuff and it's less, it's more episodic than it is.
What's the thing that Harry gets from Ron? The
Sneakoscope.
The Doom Ball thing. What?
Sneakoscope.
So I find it really interesting that like, we obviously know why that thing is freaking out around Ron is because of Scabbers. But I find it funny that it doesn't freak out around any of the Dursleys at all.
Well, that's more like an evil you know, right?
I guess
Harry
because,
already
they're
knows.
there.
Exactly. And you don't know that Scabbers is, spoiler, Peter Pettigrew.
What? No, yeah, and I think it's somebody who's like actively dangerous to you, whereas the whole, like where I am right now, like obviously the whole point is that Harry is fundamentally safe at the Dursleys, even if he's not, even if he's being abused. So
he's uncomfortable, not in mortal danger.
Exactly.
That's a good way of putting it. So, I think it's kind of interesting. You can kind of tell the difference in emotional maturity between Ron and Hermione, where Hermione gives Harry this gift that's clearly perfect, like it's a perfect fit for his interests, whereas Ron just kind of gives him this random trinket. So I think that was notable.
But you can imagine him in Egypt being like, "Oh shit, I forgot to buy Harry." Mom, can I get no? Okay, fine. Let's sneak a scope it is.
I'm definitely more of a Ron buyer than a Hermione buyer.
Does anyone have?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think the broom repair kit thing can actually improve the performance of your broom, or it's more just a novelty thing that people like to do because they are fixated on their equipment? Because if it's a magical broom, it doesn't seem like a repair kit is going to make it work better.
Well, based on our description, like we get of, like the firebolt that we'll get later on, it sounds like there are certain like aspects of a broom that make it better. So I guess like maintenance, keeping it properly maintained is important. Like you want to make sure all the twigs are in place, or that could mess up the aerodynamics.
You gotta groom it.
Yeah, I guess it might matter.
But yeah, could you just put a charm on there so the twigs wouldn't move at all or something? I don't know.
No, that would ruin the magic.
Right?
Ruin the magic.
And I don't think a few twigs are going to make a difference when you're wearing billowing robes.
I don't know, that the shaft could get pretty worn out. I don't know.
All right.
You got to put like a good sealant on it. Yeah.
This will be a very Quidditch-heavy book. This book's
I never know which level I should be talking to you guys on.
Well, we skipped Quidditch for a while after this book, so...
This is probably the Quidditchiest book, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, book 6, though.
That one's pretty...
Yeah. Poor Wood. I mean, the guy's name is Wood.
Yeah, Wood's still in this book.
And there's the World Cup in book 4.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
So... I have a question. So, do we have a sense of how much 700 galleons is worth? If we were going to convert that to U.S. currency or whatever, how much that can take you? I guess.
I just read about this somewhere. Apparently, it's not enough to buy even a small apartment in London.
Are we talking about today's standards or 1990s?
Well, yeah, this is 1993?
Apparently, 1 galleon is around equal to £7. So you can calculate how much that is.
But would they have a different value though within the magical economy, right?
Oh yeah, they're all buying in gold now because it is physical gold. So obviously,
and this is the weird thing that never. I think we discussed this before. That never really made sense about magical world is they can probably magic up a house for themselves and hide it and have all this land, but then some magic people are still poor. I just assume it's because they're bad at magic. I don't know. Even the Weasley's house is kind of pretty cool and fairly large, even though it's they're supposed to be the poor wizards.
But aren't there rules laws even to what magic you can do? Wouldn't you still need raw materials to put a house together?
Right, but you could go to the forest and get all the... You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel
yeah, maybe.
They built... Like 4 people built the whole damn castle, right? So...
I don't know.
I assume they had all kinds of magical creatures assisting them that were enslaved.
It was all the elves.
Well, to go back to Ron's kind of crappy gift, I think probably free cash was part of that too.
Right.
And that's something that gets continually highlighted, like in this book, and then the next book, and then the next book after that book, and then the next book after that book.
Yeah, I always have like this weird thought at this chapter of like, maybe should the Weasleys have been like more fiscally responsible with this windfall? But like, it's clearly not. I know, but I ultimately I think it made sense, and it's clearly not enough that it's like going to do a lot for them. So it makes sense to splurge on this vacation and have.
I feel like the main thing was that J.K. Rowling was like, oh well, Ron needs a wand, and I've established that wands are expensive and they can't really afford one. So I need to come up with a way that he can actually get a real wand again.
And Harry won't give him any of his fortune to buy a wand with.
Right. Well, he wouldn't take it, right? Is that the idea? Or?
Yeah, I think Harry would give it, but
Harry considers it more than once.
But Harry's also like, I don't have any money either, technically.
Well, Harry.
But I also feel like if the wand chooses the wizard, like what happens when like a poor wizard walks in and they're like, ooh, this is great. You know, it's like 200 galleons. This is a great wand. This is your wand. Oh, you can't afford it. Okay. Well, you're screwed.
I think those people probably don't go to Ollivanders, you know.
They're just going to get
the wand shop. They make their own. Yeah. They're like there's the section of nice wands that will call to you, and there's the section of poor people wands that will call to you. It's just the whole thing's a scam. He takes
Ollivander's not a scam.
I don't know. That guy's kind of creepy.
Oh, he's creepy, but he's on the level in terms of
how old is he?
What's his shit? Or he knows his wood.
Yeah, he's a master woodsman. Okay.
Okay,
chapter
we've been joined by SerDinnerRoll, I think.
Yeah.
He's showing up on the chat, but he's not talking. So,
I heard him laugh.
Anyway. That could have been Zack. I can't tell the difference.
We are the same person.
Hey, nice to see you, Paul.
Hello. And it was Zack you guys were hearing.
Okay, so moving on to chapter 2. That's
Me, yes. So this is less a recap and more of a retelling from an alternate point of view.
Oh my God.
Marjorie Dursley had always preferred the company of animals to that of human beings. You knew where you stood with a good sound dog. Everything was straightforward and behaviors could be trained and anticipated. She counted her many dogs as her only true friends in this world and loved them a great deal. With people, the lines were blurred and their intentions were often inscrutable. Marge had never been comfortable in social interactions where her blunt honesty and matter-of-fact truth-telling had gotten her into trouble. Growing up just after the war, she had known her share of hardship as a girl and learned the value of determined, responsible work while acquiring a hearty appetite in reaction to the scarcity mindset of her early childhood. As a result of her prodigious eating, Miss Dursley had been perpetually forced to confront society's body images used over the years, but she eventually gained self-acceptance and more of a pride in her prominent physicality. She sought to instill similar pride in other big-boned and plus-sized individuals, and she always resented naturally skinny, high-metabolism people who looked down with disdain on larger and less conventionally attractive folks. One of the few people that Marge had any recurring social interaction with was her brother Vernon and his family, including that snarky, self-satisfied know-it-all nephew of his. Such meetings as they'd had hadn't often gone well. At her sweet nephew Dudley's 5th birthday party, the children had been playing some physically taxing dancing game, and Dudley was struggling to keep up due to his chubby stature. Of course, Harry was nearly preternaturally gifted, and with almost magical body control, and was joyfully upstaging Dudley on his special day. Unable to bear this any longer, Marge had tried to nudge the little show-off into a stumble so that the birthday boy could be the star of his day. Insolent Harry clearly didn't take the hint, and seemed ever so combative and ornery thereafter. Some years later, at a Christmas gathering, Marge had attempted to make a connection with the boy. Knowing how valuable she had found animal companionship in her life, she had gifted Harry with a pack of premium canine training treats in hopes that he would inquire about pet ownership and take an interest in dog training. Alas, it was another failed communication attempt. The final straw came on Dudley's 10th birthday, when the Potter boy's true cruelty showed through. Marge's precious bulldog was minding his own business and resting on the floor, when sullen Harry came by and maliciously stomped on the poor creature's paw. What kind of person vindictively hurts an animal? Fortunately, the old dog was assertive and robust enough to stand up to the abuse and chase the boy around to teach him to have more respect for animals in the future. Needless to say, Marge was not overly enthusiastic about another interaction with this boy, but she presumed that it was her familial obligation to give it another go, so she packed up her things and headed out for a big visit. Over the intervening years, her concerns about Harry had been fully vindicated, according to Vernon's reports, and by the news that he was now enrolled at St. Brutus's Secure Center for Incurably Criminal Boys. If she'd hoped that his new environs would have instilled some humility, discipline, and manners in the lad, then she was sorely mistaken and disappointed upon being reacquainted. He remained aloof and smirking with that haughty air of superiority and self-satisfaction. Marge could only assume that Vernon and Petunia were quite ashamed of this would-be wastrel, so she sought to emphasize how she didn't blame them for his distasteful disposition. They didn't seem to know how to handle him or have any ideas for his improvement, so she aimed to be useful and offer pointers when opportunities arose. By drawing comparisons to wholesome Dudley and praising and rewarding him, she hoped to highlight a proper standard for the boy to imitate. The tensions in the house grew and grew. Marge couldn't exactly put her finger on what the problem was. After all, interpersonal drama had never been her forte. This prolonged social interaction was quite taxing and clearly starting to get to her. One day, while trying to assuage her brother's apparent discomfort with the development of this brooding boy's personality, she went on a tangent about breeding genes and hereditary behavior markers and got so worked up that she inadvertently crushed a wine glass that she was holding. Marge was relieved to finally reach the final day of her extended visit and was drinking freely to lubricate the socially awkward family dynamics. She knew that Vernon was quite fond of a bevy himself and that he expected her to imbibe redoubtably in turn, and she was only too happy to oblige him on this front. She went out of her way to compliment Petunia's cooking and instill a body-positive outlook in young Dudley, who had been noticeably been relishing the desserts of late. After plenty of wine, Marge's admittedly mean joke about Harry, who had barely picked at his food, looking a bit runty like a sickly puppy, didn't go over well at all. Trying to distance the insult from her brother and sister-in-law, she assured them that it wasn't their fault, but rather a bum roll of the genetic dice. Curiosity and brandy carried Marge onward to inquire about Harry's father, and she was unsurprised to learn that he was indeed an indolent layabout who was on the dole and clearly felt that the world owed him something. Some people have no work ethic or personal responsibility. When she said as much, the boys snarled some sharp retort. Vernon tried to distract and placate Marge, but she felt it was important to get to the root of the problem. Harry was full of false pride and misplaced self-aggrandizement, and she wanted him to see that he was not so special after all. His parents were nobodies who had done him no favors, and he ought to be more grateful towards the Dursleys who took him in. He was not some chosen one. He didn't deserve special treatment. He wasn't the star of some grand, outlandish fantasy story. But suddenly, she couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. She felt her insides inflating uncomfortably. The hellish heartburn rose higher and higher, almost unbearable. Her skin started to stretch. Her muscles felt like tearing, and her clothes began to rip apart. Eyes bulging in terror, body vulgarly bloated, Marge started to float upward, filling ever tighter with some ghastly gaseous substance. Her brother reached out to her in horror, and her loyal dog raced into the room in a barking frenzy. She could only stare on in mute agony. The only person who was not panicking was Potter, who simply sprinted out of the room, and the last thing she saw before her cheeks and forehead folded over her eyes was Harry hauling a large trunk down the hall, pointing a short stick threateningly and shouting at her brother Vernon. The end. So,
I'm stunned.
We need to stop inviting you to these things.
You're the bane of my existence, Paul.
I have no words.
I will make a point that I'm not trying to say that all assholes are on the autism spectrum or anything like that, but we can just try to imagine that there's some mitigating circumstances. So, yeah.
Well, it all works out for her in the end. She's the hero of her own story.
Which we don't really know how it plays out after this. She gets kind of magically blanked and reset, but I'm not sure she has a happy ever after.
Oh, no, she just goes on living life.
Yep.
It was she was doing before. So, I'm sure she's happy with that.
But yeah, it seems this chapter is more played for kind of, she's an unbearably cruel person, and it seems more...
Right.
Yeah, this is not my favorite chapter, honestly. I always found it a little bit, uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the part where she calls his mom a bitch and whatnot. Uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a bit nasty, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also, just talking about, like, the whole, like, genetic thing and, like, I think that's something, like, I thought it was kind of like the same thing when I think I first read it, but, like, reading it this time, I was like, I got, like, I forget what the word is, but, like, it's like human breeding almost was, like, she was referring and, like,
eugenics a little bit. Yeah,
eugenics. Yeah, you feel like she's, like, time displaced, maybe, like she, doesn't exist in the 90s, maybe in a different decade, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, she reminds me a lot of oh my goodness, the headmistress from Matilda.
Trunchbull.
Mm-hmm.
This is Trunchbull. Yeah, there's that kind of Roald Dahl thing where grown-ups are terrible, evil people, and the kids know the truth and stuff.
Unless you're Dudley.
Well, he just eats too much. That's why it clouds his brain. All the food. Trans fats. PSA, everybody. Trans fats.
I feel like it's more heavily laid on in the movies, but like the fat portion being like an evil like trait almost in pretty much all the Harry Potter books, not even just the Dursleys, but like Crabbe and Goyle, bothered me in this chapter a little bit. Maybe because I am like, a bigger person, but I was like, whoa, JK.
Now that you mention it, I mean, like, what's like a like someone on the good side that's like jolly and fat?
Hagrid.
In these books. Hagrid's. I didn't really imagine him as like fat.
Hagrid's
just like
big.
Wide.
He's just big, yeah.
He's
I think
giant.
Neville is described as being a little chubby.
He's chubby. Yeah.
He's round faced. Yeah, but no, I mean, I think that there's like kind of no way around it. Like she does associate like being, especially with Dudley, overweight with being like bad. Like I mean, not everyone. Obviously, Voldemort's obviously always skeletally thin.
I think it's just because it's easy to say, okay, well, you're like ravenous and gluttonous, and that's just it's a physical manifestation of selfishness. I think that's the idea. But yeah, it does come off as like, oh yeah, this evil fat people sometimes, which kind of sucks. But I don't know if that was really the intent on a conscious level.
Well, again, I sort of wonder if it's a British thing, if it's like a very familiar trope in like British children's literature that that could just be me being like, oh, that's what it is when it's totally not what it is. But like,
I mean, I would say it's a like pretty traditional trope among American writing too, and not just writing, but especially like movies
the fat,
and
evil
like
cook,
even cartoons.
I'm thinking of that Monty Python sketch where there's that fat guy that just keeps eating and he grows bigger and bigger until he explodes.
Have you seen that? Creosote.
Do you think that when she got expanded like that, that's an actual spell, or that's just a reaction that somehow Harry can produce by being mad? Or does it like unlock some spell that he didn't actually know?
Well, I mean, I feel like every spell is just a way of focusing and like some sort of power that witches and wizards have. So like they've it's not like they necessarily invented these things, more as they found a way to call upon them. I guess if that makes more sense, but it's never explained, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I kind of feel bad for Harry in this chapter just because like you can kind of feel his emotional, like how emotional he is hearing all these things from Marge and trying to, fight it to get that ticket to Hogsmeade or signature to Hogsmeade, and like just like literally breaking when the glass breaks, and also just like overflowing with emotion as Marge overflows. But like it's
obviously a really severe example of it. But this chapter, I think, really perfectly captures that that social anxiety that you get when you have a relative coming to stay with you that you just don't like at all, and like every single day feels torturously long waiting for them to leave. There's that first part early on when she's arriving and the car's parking outside and you hear the crunching of the gravel. I just felt that kind of like that dread at that point.
Yeah, but especially someone who, like, either politically or spiritually or whatever, just like disagrees with like what you are as a human being is what.
And they're going to let you know about that.
They're free. Very free to talk about it.
Yeah, they're going to let you know about eugenics.
Yeah, and I mean, Marge is awful. Like, there's kind of no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Paul's valiant attempt excluded, but like, it's not difficult to like assign to her all of the other very negative traits that the Dursleys have portrayed, including, racism, classism, all of that, kind of stuff.
Wizardism.
She's just written up to be.
If she had the opportunity to do that too.
She's just written up to be bad enough to force Harry over the edge and force him out of the house to move on to the next part of the story, I suppose.
Right.
It's have you guys seen like V for Vendetta? You guys remember that movie? I can't remember what the guy is. The talk show host or whatever. That's like the government approved talk show. Just like England prevails. Just like a real big blowhard who's just, kind of feels like the same. That's what she always reminds me of.
Isn't he played by that British actor who I've only ever seen play villain roles?
I don't think I've ever seen him play anything but kind of like the skeezy asshole.
Yeah.
To your point, Paul, about this being, a catalyzing moment where Harry actually, is so angry that he leaves the house, that he runs away. I think it is notable because, this is something that we'll have to confront more in later books. This, obvious anger that Harry has, and this, just this other part of him that he has to deal with. He does have that aspect, and obviously he has a good reason to be very angry here. But it's definitely a part of who he is. There's just some anger in him.
I think there would be something wrong with him if he wasn't angry at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he
Also,
wasn't angry
13.
now, in 10 years he'd like murder a bunch of people. So.
Well, I mean, but it's true. Like, Harry really doesn't have a lot of outlets for this part of himself, and I think what he goes through in this book is specifically kind of designed to tap into that. I mean, honestly, a lot of the books challenge Harry's limitations in terms of his personality. Book 5, obviously, very notably. But this is definitely, I totally agree, the beginning of that kind of like borderline irrational, he's angry about the circumstances that are going on, but there's also years and years of psychological shit behind it that are also being dredged up that haven't been dealt with yet because they don't have therapy in the wizarding world. So.
Yep.
Yeah, and also he just can't talk to his friends. Like, exactly that. Like, there's no internet. It's just letters, snail mail, and telephone, which Ron can't even figure out how to use. So he just doesn't have any, like...
I would say Ron's the worst, but, like, a lot of wizards can't figure out really simple stuff.
I mean,
it's
Ron's like my grandma trying to use Skype. It's like, hello, can you see
is
my
a wand
face?
like the
you only
the
see the top of their head?
Is the wand like the magical equivalent of like the cell phone? We think everyone's becoming stupider because the cell phone's like doing things for them. Like, is that the idea? Like, because they have the wand, they like, I don't know how to write my own name. The wand writes it. Like, is what it, I'm like, they have quills and stuff, right? So I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, I don't know how magic began, but I don't think they were just like, they probably eventually like figured out not to do it with just their minds. I don't know. Let's go back to the history of wizards and how they began.
I think that is a theme, though. That's a very persistent theme that, like, I mean, Hermione says in in Snape's chamber that, like, what the problem he's set them has nothing to do with magic. It's logic, and a lot of wizards don't have that. And, like, I've heard a lot of people being like that the whole wizarding community thing is like inherently very classist because they could solve all these problems for the rest of us that they aren't doing. And I'm like, they cause plenty of their own problems. Like, I feel like it actually kind of evens out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if they were like, we're gonna eradicate cancer, they go around starting eradicate cancer, and somehow they would create a new magical beast that would eat the earth or something. Someone would fuck it up.
Yeah. They just function on a different, I think, system of cause and effect than Muggles do. So,
also, just one thing on that. the reason why the statute of secrecy exists is because there's a very difficult history between Muggles and wizards, being hunted down for their magic, and I'm sure that in some respects that wouldn't change if they revealed themselves. So they have a reason to not want to help.
This is true.
And now that we've reached the statute of secrecy, I think that means we should be moving on to the next chapter. Okay, so chapter 3, the night bus. Harry reaches a Magnolia Crescent and he sees a black dog staring at him. In his shock, Harry falls and the night bus, a triple-decker bus designed for visit transportation, arrives. The dog vanishes and is nowhere in sight. Harry meets the night bus conductor, Stan Shunpike, and the driver, Ernie Prang. Harry departs on the night bus to the Leaky Cauldron in London. He learns from the Daily Prophet, Sirius Black, the same convict and a follower of Lord Voldemort, broke out of Azkaban, the first person ever to do so. Sirius was imprisoned for murdering 13 people with a single curse in 1981, right after the Potter's murder. At the Leaky Cauldron, he meets the Minister for Magic, Cornelius Fudge, in person, though Harry has to pretend that he doesn't know him since Harry and Ron were technically breaking school rules during their previous school year when they saw him in Hagrid's hut. After explaining that Marge has been restored to normal and her memory modified, to Harry's surprise, Fudge doesn't take any action against him, stating that accidental uses of magic don't count as violations of the decree for the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery. Fudge books a room for Harry where he will stay for the rest of the summer, but refuses to sign Harry's Hogsmeade permission slip.
I just want to say that with the last book, this system's bullshit. Like,
yes,
I know, right?
With fucking Dobby being like, "Oops," and then Harry gets like a notification or whatever, and then like for this where he like actually calls and he's like, "Oh, whatever." And I know it's because of Sirius and like all the other stress that Cornelius thinks that Harry's dealing with, but. It's just like so stupid, and I know it gets more stupid later.
I think maybe at this point J.K. Rowling hadn't come up with the priori incantatum thing, where you can tell what spells a wand has done. So because that would be like a very simple way out, right?
Like it just feels like this is clearly an automated system, and they're just like, what if the charm it caught you? Like whatever. Like they're too busy to monitor this.
Yeah,
and I mean people like Malfoy and stuff get away, right? I mean, it isn't it like the like Ron and them do magic at home, and no one really notices because they're a magical family and they're able to get away with it. Is that what it is?
Right.
Yeah. Because it's surrounded by people who can legally do magic, so they can't tell who's done it.
So really, for most of the books, it seems like it's only the select people from non-magical families that they monitor, and then you get the whole thing with the trace and all that later on. So I don't know. It's confusing.
I think the specific issue in that case in Chamber with Dobby was that there were 2 Muggles that were not, appraised of the situation. I think that was the reason why they gave him that warning. If that magic had happened, and I don't know, like it's weird. I think that is the specific case there.
And in the book, you see him using his wand as a flashlight under the covers, or in the movie, I mean. So, I don't know. It seems like they kind of fudge it.
Light's okay. Light's fine.
Yeah, everyone needs a flashlight, right? I mean, it's on your phone, it's on your wand.
But that's still underage magic, right? I mean, where do you draw the line?
Right.
No, it's true. I mean, I guess, like, Book 5 doesn't really count because they're looking for a reason to have Harry thrown out of Hogwarts, so like it wouldn't really matter what he did. But I don't know. I like it when we get to hear from Mafalda Hopkirk because I don't like the way she writes. It's so funny. Just like, you have been expelled from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft. A team of Ministry Wizards will be arriving soon to destroy your wand.
It's weird that the Ministry of Magic can trace like even small incidents of unintentional magic, but they can't trace magical creatures being in close proximity to the wizard.
Yeah. They can't trace anything except for apparently on underage people, which they track with magic somehow. Like
exactly, I don't understand.
They can't find criminals, and they don't know what happened when they show up to a magical scene. They're like, "What happened here?" I don't know. I guess Sirius Black did it.
Let's listen to the Muggles.
It's the teens you got to look out for.
And do you think they would actually kick Harry out no matter what he did from like a PR standpoint, kicking the most famous wizard out of your school just for doing some underage wizarding? It seems like they would give him as much leniency as you could possibly.
Certainly at this point, no. I mean, once it goes through the court and all that. But like I said, it feels like it's an automated system. Like she probably didn't even realize it's Harry Potter, the Harry Potter. She's just like, oh, it ticked. Send off the letter. Take the wand, Whoops. It's bureaucracy, right? Also, just pointing out the balls Harry has for asking, like, the head of his nation, can you sign my permission slip?
He really wants to get to that gift shop, man.
Man. You gotta get to Honeydukes.
He don't know what's down there. It's mysterious.
He just wants to go to town.
Yeah, he just wants to hang out with his friends and be a kid. Like, I'd be asking everyone. I would, and honestly, why doesn't he just forge it himself?
Yeah, that seems the easiest solution.
They lie and they bend the rules. They're not like perfect little angels, but he never thinks to do that.
I think Dean actually offers to, but this is after Harry has told McGonagall that he has not had his thing signed. So.
Oh, he already. That's right. He screws himself.
Bad move, Harry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if he had the permission slip signed, would they have let him go to Honeydukes?
No, probably not.
Probably not.
Because I think, the reverse is true here. If there's no Dementors and they're not worried, and he's like, hey, I didn't have it signed, she'd be like, I'll sign it. It's cool. Like, I think they'd be like, yeah, that's a nothing. For them, it's just a convenient excuse to keep him in the castle.
Yeah.
And we got to find an excuse to go see that passageway and find that out.
And get the map.
And we got to use the cloak, man. It's always good to use the cloak.
While we're talking about it, by the way, I still find it completely baffling that Sirius Black is able to sign the permission slip at the end of this book. Totally okay. Signed Sirius Black, master.
Obviously.
Like, the boy's godfather. I can do it.
Rules are rules.
I wonder if like him and Dumbledore had a talk in like the whatever building they're in, that apartment building that Sirius loans out. They're like, hey, I'm letting you use this space.
Grimmauld place.
Permission for him. Okay, and Dumbledore was like,
no. Well, I feel like by the end of the book, like it's clear that Dumbledore realizes what's going on, and so the only person that for the permission slip, the only person that has to approve it is the headmaster. So, oh yeah, cool.
It's good. What's going on?
And somehow they can't get him cleared. Like even on the word of like a dozen people, it's. Yeah, Sirius Black is a problem. But anyway.
I was going to say, how many people do you think accidentally hail the night bus without meaning to? Just by putting your wand hand out anywhere in the world. It all of a sudden shows up right in front of you.
Well, I think, is it anywhere in the world or is it just England?
Don't you raise your wand hand for like every single spell you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to feel distressed when you do it, Nadia. I mean, obviously, that's the key.
Yeah. It should have been something else. I mean, it's just too convenient.
There's a lot of things. I feel like that writing these books, if she were to go through and like do a rewrite at some point, there were a lot of little details like this where she'd be like, "Shit, I would have done that differently," because of the stuff that comes up later. But it's fine.
I mean, I don't care about this one because it's just really cool. I really like that scene in the movie too. It's just a cool bus, and it's crazy, man.
That bus.
Yeah, I love the night bus. It's just
maybe it depends
who's
just
driving it. Over.
Like Stan and Ernie don't seem like the brightest, so like maybe other people who run the night bus are like, oh no, yeah, we know when somebody just fell over.
Doesn't Stan get arrested later on?
Yeah, Stan is arrested.
He gets sent to Azkaban, I think.
Yeah. I don't remember what he did. Was he a Death Eater, or he was accused of being a Death Eater, or something like that?
I think he was put under the Imperious Curse, actually.
Oh,
sad
of course.
I think that it's funny reading this now because I think as a kid, like, and teenager, like, I didn't understand, like, British accents, and reading, like, Stand Back, I'm like, oh, this is, like, Cockney pretty much. And so I was able to, like, read it in his voice. And then, like, I remember reading it.
Before you were like, something's wrong with this gentleman.
It's like, he can't talk. He must be stupid.
Do you know who never wins? He's Harry Potter.
So he bragged that he knew about Death Eaters, probably to try to get some lady impressed, and went to prison for it.
Oh yeah, that's what the
Nice. Nice. Oh, what an idiot.
Yeah.
But yeah, night bus, cool.
When he got on the night bus, if he had said, I want to go to Hogwarts instead of London, could have it had just taken him straight to Hogwarts, do you think? Even though he wouldn't have gone there because he thought he was getting kicked out. But I wonder if it could do that if he asked it to.
Maybe it could only go to Hogsmeade.
Yeah,
you can't go to because the apprenticeship slip isn't signed. You can't go there, guys. You can't.
Oh no! It would have created the paradox.
Yeah, I mean, in book 5, they do take the night bus to Hogsmeade.
Wasn't the logic for Harry to get gold anyways? Like, not even just for like to get his supplies, but just like to have money because he didn't have that much on him. I think that was what
Right. Yeah, and then he could go on the run and all that. My thing is with the night bus,
But like really, you would think that you could find any wizarding criminal in Diagon Alley, right? Because they only have one bank, like
there's Gringotts and then there's dark Gringotts.
Right.
No, we settled this. Nocturne Alley's the red light district.
All right. They've got Gringotts Nocturne Alley branch. But I feel like the night bus is cool because there's a bed and you can sleep and you're like, oh, it's like an overnight. Like they have that bus that goes from LA to San Francisco that seems cool and all that. But then don't they get everywhere super quickly? So are you there long enough to actually use the bed? Or do people just ride around on it for fun?
It's also extremely uncomfortable, as we learned. Yeah,
you get slammed around.
Yeah, why aren't they locked down? Like it takes one spell, right, to fix something in place. Why can't they do that?
I mean, it also kind of just seems like if you're in the city, like you use Uberpool or Lyft Line or one of the other apps, and you get picked up, but then you have to pick up 3 other people, and then you gotta go around the whole fucking city to finally get to where you need to go. So it feels like that kind of situation. Not that that existed in the 90s, so I'm sure that's not what JK was basing this off of.
Well, wizarding transportation is kind of a funny thing anyway, right? Like, why do you need to take the night bus as opposed to apparating or flying or,
right? Because as we learned, some people are shit at apparating and can hurt themselves, and then some people can't fly or would be seen, or they come up with reasons. But then other people that can apparate, why does it take Dumbledore so long to go to London and back? I don't know. Questions.
Well, can't you not apparate into Hogwarts?
Yes.
Well, in that new movie, you can.
Dumbledore can.
We don't know the situation yet. Maybe it hadn't been instituted. Dumbledore's also teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts when he's clearly a Transfiguration teacher. So there's a lot of things to work out here. I don't really care. I don't care if there's inconsistencies between the Passing Peace movies and the Harry Potter books. It doesn't really matter to me. But I do think that we have to at least wait to establish that this is inconsistent before we
Well, I feel like if there's no danger, do you necessarily need to have that restriction, or I don't know. Maybe it's just to prevent the kids from trying to do it around the school and hurting themselves.
Yeah, I mean it's a school. It's probably still a good idea to have basic security measures anyway.
Stop them from teleporting to Hogsmeade without getting the permission slip signed.
Yeah, that's actually really talking about this now versus talking about it probably when these books came out is actually kind of depressing. But I mean, we can make jokes about them having to wear clear robes and shit, but it's
yeah.
So I would think this is the 90s. It's been a long time since Voldemort's gone. It seems like they've lived in relative peace.
Just Sirius Black.
Right, yeah, because he's on the loose, so it makes sense. all the extra security. But I just mean normally, I don't know if it's a thing or not.
So what do you guys think about Fudge?
Like with our our knowledge of him afterwards, or just like our initial
kind of
first
like,
reactions?
Like, how did he get the job in the first place?
I mean,
You could say that about so many politicians.
Yeah.
You.
It was a useless job when he was running for election, maybe, and no one else wanted to do it. I don't know.
I think everyone wanted Dumbledore and he wouldn't do it, so...
Yeah. And
You got
Barty
real loud
Crouch
for a
was
second
supposed
there.
to do it, too.
Yeah, it's weird because you hear how everyone loves Dumbledore, and Dumbledore was the only thing that kept people safe, and they all wanted to be minister. And then it's almost like he has no influence at certain parts when you'd think he would have a lot of influence. So, kind of sucks.
I mean, Dumbledore is definitely a leader, but he doesn't want to be like the leader, I think. He doesn't want to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he likes his summers off. I mean, that's why he's a teacher. So.
Clearly, he has those summers off.
In between finding Horcruxes.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And I wonder how unilaterally powerful the Minister of Magic is supposed to be, or if there's any like checks and balances on Parliament or whatever, if they can, or if this is just a kind of a dictatorship until you're voted out or whatever.
Well, clearly he controls the fourth estate already, so that's one thing, at least.
Yes. I mean, he does. Like, that's one thing she starts, with, like, it's kind of unsettling, like, how much of the ministry line is in the Daily Prophet, even at this point,
Okay, so do we want to move on to the next chapter?
Sure.
Okay, so chapter 4, whose was that? My laptop off, so
I got that.
I can't do it. Okay.
So we move on to chapter 4, and after Harry arriving at the Leaky Cauldron via the night bus, he kind of gets to settle in, gets a room in the inn, spends some time enjoying the Wizarding World and Diagon Alley for the first time, which is cool. He spends time studying and doing his homework and meeting the shopkeepers, and he sees the firebolt put in the window for sale for the first time, and it's the fancy prototype broom, and it's like the shit. He wants it, but it's worth like more than his life, I think. And so he has a good time doing that until Ron and Hermione and everybody else show up to do their school shopping, and they hang out and do some shopping and buy an ugly cat and some weird stuff going on with Ron's rat. And then they're ready to go to school right directly from there. But first, Harry overhears the discussion about Sirius Black and what he actually did. And yeah, not cool. Oh, and when Harry first goes into the store,
we don't know what he did, right? We know that he's supposed to be after Harry.
That he's after Harry instead of just being a criminal. Yeah, he doesn't find that until Hogsmeade, but that he's after Harry, and he's like, what the fuck? And then probably my favorite part of this chapter is when he goes into the bookstore to get his books, and the dude puts on the giant glove to get the monster book, and he's like, I already got that one. And the guy's like, oh, thank God. This is the worst book ever.
That was Greg, that guy.
Yeah, but that is who I imagine now. But it's I don't know. This is a fun chapter where, for once in these books, kind of he just gets to enjoy being in the magical world and a real vacation.
Yeah, he gets to just be like. I mean, he's very independent in this town as a 13-year-old, but he just gets to eat ice cream sundaes, go roam around, look at all the shops.
Yeah, and you know that around every corner someone is watching him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bodyguards everywhere.
It really captures that lazy summer feeling you get as a kid, when you just have so much time and nothing to do with it. It's really cool. I like that.
I miss those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also love that as a cat owner, the introduction of Crookshanks it's just, it's one of my favorite things, because Hermione is completely crazy and illogical about this cat, and I completely understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the 3 big mistakes in the series, is the purchase of this cat.
What?
Why?
I want to know what the other two mistakes.
Yeah, what are the other two?
Oh, we'll get there.
I think Crookshanks is very misunderstood. Just saying.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, he's cooler than Scabbers.
Right? He's a measle.
Yeah, he's technically
He's
a
better than
magical...
one of the worst villains in the series.
Hey, I was giving him a compliment.
I feel like if he could talk, he'd be like, "Look, Hermione, I know rats. That's not a fucking rat. Trust me."
Just old grumpy cat over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rat needs to die.
Yeah. But I also love in the pet store when the rats are skipping and the witch is like, "Why do you want this normal muggle rat? Like, it's gonna die."
Can you just imagine, like, being a person that's a rat for, like, that long?
Yeah, that's
got,
crazy.
The fingernails that have grown into, like, circles and shit.
I honestly sometimes wonder if Peter Pettigrew in the Dark of Night retransformed.
I know, it's think about it.
There are many bad
just
implications
lurks around.
to this reality.
I feel like
sleep.
No, I feel like he would go off into the field or something and transform, go eat something, or like that's what you would think, but he doesn't have a wand, he doesn't have any magic either. So I don't know.
Some very damaged psychology going on with that guy.
Indeed. Yes.
He was in a prison of his own making for 10 years? 12 years?
13.
Or I guess it's
Yeah, around 12 actually. Harry was around 1 year old, right?
13 years I waited.
Yes. I mean, not to skip ahead, but that's some of I personally think some of the most dramatic stuff in the series, like when they're both confronted with that amount of time. Obviously Pettigrew being guilty and Sirius being innocent, and then both having been in these imprisoned states, and nobody knowing the truth about them except each other. Really, I love that shit. It's great.
Why don't we wait to discuss that until part 3 of this?
Fine, Nadia.
This chapter has one of my favorite Fred and George moments when they're just mocking Percy, acting like gentlemen. They're just like, absolutely spiffing Harry.
I literally laughed out loud with Big Head Boy.
Yeah. Also, Percy's the worst, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Percy.
He takes a bad turn.
Yeah, we have another book before he gets truly unbearable, but yeah.
But seriously, Harry's getting free Sundays every half hour. That is way too much sugar.
I know, I thought that too. I also like he paid for it.
The Dursleys barely feed him, right? So I think it's deserved.
Yeah, but he's been eating cake all summer.
Harry Potter and the early onset diabetes.
Hey, Marge was clearly wrong. Those genetics are pretty good, clearly.
Yeah.
It's the magic.
I wonder how wizarding dental hygiene works. If he can maintain, or the cavities are easily repaired.
Judging by the general British system, not great.
I'd be putting in false teeth and shit to hide magical stuff if I ever got in trouble. That's what I'd be doing.
And you'd get arrested. Shiftiest magic user alive. I'm knocking out my teeth so I can hide shit in them.
Gotta be easier ways to hide things magically than taking out your teeth.
You're
I don't
worse
know,
than
man.
Moody.
But going on to the British dental system before someone yells at us on YouTube or something, I hear in recent years they've spent a lot of money making sure that people go to the dentist. So
I'm sure Hermione's parents are very good at their job.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Dentist.
Yeah. Well, that's why Hermione has money, because her parents are dentists.
Clearly.
I'm just following the logic here.
Dentists make bank.
Especially
do they in England as well? We don't know.
Listen, I've watched the Great British Bake Off. That hasn't reached every part of the population. Okay.
It just means they're behind because there's so much work to do.
Let's just keep leaning into it. Yes.
And they have nationalized healthcare. So would that be the same? Would they be getting the same amount of money even if they did everything?
I don't know.
We need Dina so we can ask her about England.
Moving
We got way off
Harry
topic.
Potter.
Okay, but before we end though, one of my favorite things in this book is the last line of this chapter when Harry looks in the mirror and says, "I'm not going to be murdered," and the mirror says, "That's the spirit, dear."
Amazing. I love it.
The mirror is really sassy.
Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 5.
Okay, chapter 5. The Dementor. I'm just going to read from the Harry Potter Wikia, which says, the next day, shortly before he boards the Hogwarts Express, Arthur tries to warn him, meaning Harry, we've got our pronouns mixed up here, about Black, and makes him, meaning Harry, promise not to go looking for Black no matter what he hears. Harry's like, duh, I'm not that stupid, and he knows already that Black is after him because he heard Mr. and Mrs. Weasley talking about it that night. On the train, Harry, Ron, and Hermione share a compartment with Professor Remus Lupin, the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And they don't know what to make of this man who is exhausted and sleeping and traveling with the children, oddly enough. After several hours, the train stops and a sinister cloaked figure enters the compartment. It sucks the happiness out of Harry, who faints. It doesn't say this, but does he hear screaming at this point? I think
he does.
He does.
Yes.
Okay. The creature approaches Harry, possibly to kiss him, and then Lupin drives it off with a spell. When Harry recovers, Lupin hands him and the others chocolate and explains that the creature was a Dementor, one of the guards at Azkaban, and they were searching the train for Sirius Black. At Hogwarts, Draco Malfoy finds the fact that Harry fainted hilarious because Draco Malfoy has no personality other than evil until book 6, which is maybe another thing that Joe could have worked on a little bit. And he taunts Harry over his reaction to the Dementor. After getting inside, Professor McGonagall calls Harry and Hermione to her so Joe doesn't have to write another poem. And
I can't believe all this was in the wiki. Wow.
Yeah, well, whatever. I'm maybe extrapolating slightly. Professor McGonagall says that Lupin told her what happened about the Dementor, and she wants him to be looked after by Madame Pomfrey. But Madame Pomfrey, begrudgingly agrees that he's fine. And also, Harry doesn't hear what McGonagall wants with Hermione, but they return to the Great Hall to find that they missed the sorting ceremony. Dumbledore announces that there are 2 changes in the staffing during the year. Lupin and Hagrid, who has been made the Care of Magical Creatures teacher due to the retirement of Professor Kettleburn, who I believe wants to spend time with his remaining limbs.
An all-time line.
Yeah. And Dumbledore also announces that Dementors are to be stationed around the school as a precaution against Black, and he's basically like, seriously, guys, don't fuck with the Dementors. Like, this is not a joke. And that's the chapter.
I just want to say that, like, I'm just thinking back to, like, watching the trailer where, like, Harry's like, why would I go looking for someone who wants to kill me? And then, like, thinking Harry was super hot back then. That's all I thought about. Oh, 13.
Aww.
He was their friend!
I wish I could see the lightning scar.
So Lupin is amazing, and this chapter is the first time we get to meet the amazing Lupin, and it's amazing because Lupin is amazing.
One of the best characters in this whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is the reason. He's definitely like one of the big reasons why I love this book. You just really get to know this new character, and he's pretty much a badass. He really takes time with Harry too, and like you can, like. You feel like he's like really becoming like a real mentor to him.
Really the only one he's had besides Dumbledore at Hogwarts. So
Yeah. We never get an explanation for the chocolate thing though.
I think chocolate is just the opposite of deep impending sadness. doom. And
Plus, it helps with cancer and heart disease or whatever it is they're saying this week. So why not Dementors?
I mean, even watching, like, I think I watched the movie before reading the book, honestly, and, like, I remember thinking, like, this was kind of silly even at that point, so I still think this is a little bit silly, but I like that it has a simple cure, especially since, like, the magic to ward these Dementors off is pretty challenging in the first place, so it seems like, oh yeah, there's a cure, but to actually, like, take care of these things so you don't feel super unhappy and sad and depressed, you gotta learn this super hard spell.
I mean, because it is like the whole Bogart thing is just like think happy thoughts basically and be like, oh, this thing is silly. Like you're just, summoning up your will to make it ridiculous.
I do think of like how much Lupin actually heard like what they were talking about, Hermione, Ron, and Harry in the car.
Oops. Oh, I feel like he heard quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. I bet he was kind of like smug. He's like, this is the way I'm meeting Harry Potter.
Well, now I'm wondering if like he was on the train because he was like supposed to protect Harry.
I think he was supposed to be on like for general protection. I don't know if it was just specifically for Harry or not.
I mean, most of the general protection seems to be for Harry's benefit.
Yeah. Protect everyone,
yes,
especially
there's
Harry
threat.
Potter. Yeah.
At the school, there's a threat. Harry, please step next to me. The rest of you stand over there, but we are all protected very well.
I don't feel like they do a very good job protecting Harry, just saying.
Yeah.
Well, Harry doesn't really make it easy.
Yeah, Harry's not good at being protected.
Yeah, but they let Sirius come into the school when he slashes the picture, like when they're at like peak alertness, and I don't know. They have no fucking clue. Now, there's reasons.
But they're not expecting a big dog, right?
Yeah, that's why he gets past everything. But
that's one of my favorite things. Also, like the fact, like Lupin is amazing and he's awesome, and he is trying to protect Harry, but he's also trying to protect himself, and like he makes a lot of choices that if Sirius were actually the murderer that everybody thinks he is, like could have ended really badly. And I just love that, like, he's this very fallible character on top of being super nice and sort of dreamy.
Agreed. On all counts.
I don't remember if it was ever stated, but what along the timeline of when Sirius escaped and when Lupin was hired, I wonder which one happened first, and if Dumbledore knew going in that they were friends back in the day, and it would be interesting or notable that he was hiring this new teacher at the same time that the other guy got out.
Well, everyone knows they were friends, right?
Well, I don't know how widely known it was that these people were friends at school.
Wasn't Dumbledore still around? Like, wasn't he a teacher or the principal when they were in school?
Yeah, I'm saying Dumbledore would know, but I'm not saying, I don't know about the general public, if they would associate Lupin and Black in that way.
You could imagine that like
possibly
a staff
not.
meeting. Dumbledore just going, how about we have Lupin? McGonagall's like, are you sure? Sirius Black has just escaped. Yeah, I think it might take here.
Dumbledore the troll.
It was getting a little boring around here.
You know what?
Actually gonna shake things up. Kids?
It takes one to know one, Snape.
Frankly, Snape, I just do this to annoy you.
I mean,
which is, you know what? Going back to the not Fantastic Beasts. What's the new one? The new Fantastic Beasts movie. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Going back to like the preview of that with like our like real like mischievous Dumbledore. He's way too young, and I'm like, where's the beard and all that? But yeah, that's it fits. I always like to think that Dumbledore just did shit because it was funny.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I always gotta like remember that like he's more like first two movies of Harry Potter Dumbledore rather than like the rest. But just kind of like just hanging out. La la la.
He's not like,
did you
put your name in the Goblet of Fire?
Oh, goodness.
Iconic.
My security cameras didn't catch it.
So guys, Malfoy sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a lot less
Agreed.
patience for Malfoy this read over. Like a lot less.
It's very
I
very
never had a lot of
childish.
patience for him.
It's very childish. And it's very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we don't see what's going on in his head, and, like, I remember, like, being a teen and, like, guys being, like, this awful at this age, and, like, even Harry's kind of, like, annoying at points, too. Not in this book, but, like, in later books. So...
And when you look at his home life and who his parents are and how they act, you kind of see where it comes from, but he's still kind of unbearable as a just lying around with.
And the fact is,
could you write a chapter for me from his perspective so I can understand?
Maybe if there's a good one coming
I'm
up.
pretty sure you can find already on fanfiction.net.
Yes.
oh goodness.
Sympathetic Malfoy reads.
I'm sure that
like,
Harry's so sexy.
yeah, the reason
that-
why he's
that-
taunting him is he just loves him too much. That's the way.
the fact that Malfoy starts off with like, "Oh, you're that Harry Potter and you're super famous. Well, we're gonna be best friends, right?" And Harry's like, "You seem like kind of a racist asshole," and then like he just never gets over that. I mean, I don't know. Like a lot of kids are kind of like shits when they're younger and they grow out of it. So he could have done that a little bit better than he. I mean, he kind of does in the end a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
it's interesting
I mean, like
to me, though,
if he's super, he kind of should hate Harry Potter anyway, right? Like, didn't we think it was kind of weird that he in the first book he's like, "Hey, we're gonna be friends because you're popular, right?" Shouldn't he be like, "Well, I want to kill you"? I would think.
I think actually, I mean, again, just because I just read like the first 2 chapters of book 6. Snape says something about how like when I mean he's lying obviously because he's talking to Narcissa and Bellatrix, but like he says that when Harry got to Hogwarts, he was still like an unknown quantity, and nobody knew if he was going to be like a dark wizard or like whatever. So
Right.
I think people were definitely trying to be like, oh, get in with that Harry Potter kid because he's probably like the next Dark Lord or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Harry was like, which way does my wand go? I want to be in Gryffindor.
I can fly really well. But I guess it's like, yeah, that makes sense because when when he's showing up, you can be like, yeah, bring him over to Slytherin and then roll with the homies.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, my problem is that like a lot of, I mean, even Snape doesn't really get much more dimension. Like he gets some in this book later. It's very slow going, but like Malfoy like gets nothing, like nothing until book 6. Like there's like no change in his behavior. Like there's no real reason he should like Umbridge. Like there's
we don't got time for no Malfoy.
Yeah, so it's just like it's a slightly disappointing part of the story for me.
Did we talk about the Dementors at all? And how somebody thought it was the right idea to send them to a school?
Yeah, that was wrong.
Yeah, Dumbledore was like, no way, but they still send them.
Are you implying that Hogwarts is possibly a less than safe location for a school?
I'm not implying it, I'm saying it.
They've got permission slips from everyone, okay? Whatever happens is covered legally.
Yeah, that's a different permission slip that all the parents signed. Yes, you can submit my children to Dementor attacks. That's fine.
Yeah, can
Keep
we
them
bring
safe.
dark magical creatures in close proximity to your children? Excellent. Sign here.
It's for their own protection.
It could just be like laziness. It's like we could either find a stable solution to this problem or use the deadly dark magical creatures.
Well, just the fact that they have
Ministry
Dementors
magic.
in their service is laziness, right? Because they're like, well, we need someone to guard our prisoners, and man, do we want to do that all the time? Hey, if we kind of cozy up to these evil creatures, they'll do it for us. So,
I mean, I guess there is something to be said about like people eventually confusing the bad things that they use to keep themselves safe with actual safety,
right, for sure.
I won't pursue that anymore, but I think you can see it in the context of the Dementors that like the wizarding community would be like, well, yeah, the bad people go to Azkaban and the Dementors keep them away, and like that makes it miserable for them. And then
They
for them
torture
to be
them
like,
all the time. Yeah.
Right. So like conceptually, sure, like they're scary, but I feel like that could like could reasonably, those lines could be blurred a little bit, or be like, well, they just do that to the bad guys, like because we tell them to, and they obviously listen to us,
Yeah, there's kind of a question about how sentient they are. Like, can you reason with them and talk to them and tell them what to do, or are they just kind of instinctually acting on how they are evil sucking creatures?
There must be some way to control them. Like if you're keeping them in one place guarding the prisoners, I mean, you must have some sort of control over them or some form of communication.
Yeah, they don't ever go into that, do they?
They seem to do what they want on certain occasions, like invading the Quidditch pitch and getting on the train when they're not supposed to, and various other things. But it seems like, they're mostly controlled most of the time, but then they can get out of hand.
Right. Well, powerful wizards clearly, like, can cast the Patronus, and they have the ability to manage them. But as to why, like, they've never gone over as to why, like, hey, what are they working at Azkaban for? Just because they like it? Or is there some sort of, like, backdoor deal going on? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, did the Dementors, as you're saying, Paul, like, have the sentience to actually, like, make a deal here? We're like, this is a great resource for us. Like, Azkaban is a great place to set up shop, so we're going to do that.
I mean, they feed on happiness, right? Or something like that. So I'm assuming they'd want to be at Azkaban since they're being given pretty much free reign to absorb all these happy thoughts from their prisoners.
That may just be how they stay alive.
Yeah.
But if they
they seem to me.
If they want happiness, it seems like they would want to be at a happier place with more happiness to take instead of a miserable prison where everybody's already bummed out.
Well, I don't think it's happiness per se, but it's like emotion and identity and
general life essence.
Yeah.
And they'd usually be driven away from, normal happy places, right? So this is where they can just do whatever they want to, basically. So they're just taking the best deal offered to them, something like that, at least.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree, and I think that it's also like it's on their. It's mentioned multiple times, like, oh, the Dementors are getting pissed. Like, they have not had anyone to eat. They have not been able to feed at all. Like, I think that they're, and by the time, like, they actually leave and join Voldemort, like, I think it's pretty clear that they have their own calculus going on, and, like, working with the wizards was, like, acceptable. Like, it was an acceptable margin of whatever for them. But I don't, like, I think that the idea that you can control Dementors is very much kind of like the Fudge kind of view of things, where, like, other magical creatures just do what wizards want you to do because wizards are more powerful and blah, 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 and, like, they're just lesser. Whereas, and I think that's, like, definitely not true.
I wonder in Azkaban if there's different tiers of prisoners, like certain really bad guys get exposed to Dementors all the time, and certain, like, minor criminals just have to encounter them every once in a while, or if they just have free reign of the prison to do as they wish. Because it seems like a real bum deal if you do a minor infringement and get sent to Azkaban, and then you're just stuck with the Dementors forever.
Why doesn't Filch go there?
I don't think you get sent to Azkaban for, like, minor infringements, though.
Well, what does Hagrid get sent there for later in the...
Just in case.
They thought he
had... Under suspicion of being the person killing Caroline.
Yeah. It's suspicion of murder. Yeah. It's not like, oh, he was caught doing weed. We gotta lock him up.
Yeah, but they were like, well, we think you had something to do with it last time, but never proved it. So just in case, we're sending you there now. We'll see what happens.
It's still not good. It's still not a good look for the mace.
Because they could have just put him somewhere else, like, and seen if the murders kept happening, But whatever.
And there's got to be more crimes than just murder that you get sent there for. I don't know what other wizard crimes are, but.
I think it would probably be the length of the sentence, like...
Like if you imperious someone...
I mean, they had those really cool cages in the fourth movie.
The movies don't count, Casey!
Not canon.
So, next chapter? Tens and Tea Leaves.
Yep, I got it. Okay, so it's got I think it's the really cool name of Towns and Tea Leaves. So, Harry's first day of school gets off to a bad start when a bunch of Slytherins make fun of him for passing out on the train because, hey, that's hilarious. Friend George tells Harry to cheer him up as they hand out class schedules, which Ron and Harry are confused over how jam-packed Hermione's schedule is. It looks like she'll be taking 3 classes at once, but Hermione dismisses Ron and Harry's questions, saying, "Don't be silly," and pass the marmalade. The 3 friends then head off to Divination, which is a long way off in the castle. On the way, they meet a portrait of a demented knight named Sir Cadogan, who acts like he's starring in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He does get the gang to the elusive tower, at least. Everyone heads inside the Divination classroom, which looks like a cross between someone's attic and an old-fashioned tea shop. Professor Sybil Trelawney proves to be a bit of a mystical nut. She makes vague predictions, has everyone practice reading tea leaves, and then predicts Harry's imminent death since there's a grim in his tea leaves. On that note, class is dismissed. Everyone is freaked out by Trelawney, except for Hermione, who thinks Trelawney is a total quack. Next, the Gryffindors head to Transfiguration, taught by Professor McGonagall. McGonagall, as an animagus, turns into a cat. The class doesn't react much to her transformation, and she wants to know what's up. Upon finding out, McGonagall has this to say: "Then you should know, Potter, that Sybil Trelawney has predicted the death of 1 student a year since she arrived at the school. Seeing death omens is her favorite way of greeting a new class." Finally, the Gryffindors and Slytherins meet up for care of magical creatures. Hagrid is nervous and has a setback when everyone complains about his crazy textbook, The Monster Books of Monsters, which has already tried to eat everyone. We'll never complain about our heavy textbooks again. Things are looking up when Hagrid presents his lesson, a hippogriff, which is half bird and half horse. Hagrid describes hippogriffs as easily offended. Don't ever insult one, because it might be the last thing you do. Harry volunteers to approach a hippogriff first out of loyalty to Hagrid. He bows to one named Buckbeak, who eventually bows right back. Then Hagrid plops Harry right on Buckbeak, who takes Harry for a bumpy ride around the paddock. Harry is glad when it's over. The class begins bowing to the hippogriffs, but Malfoy and his friends act like punks. Malfoy's hippogriff gets insulted and slashes Malfoy's arm. Everyone freaks out, and Hagrid rushes Malfoy to the infirmary. That evening, the trio visit Hagrid to cheer him up. Hagrid is grateful, but then yells at them for letting Harry wander around after dark. He escorts them back to the castle.
Guys, this might be a controversial statement, but letting Hagrid teach care of magical creatures was a bad idea.
What?
Letting last stand in Scroots. I'm just saying.
Letting the gardener take care of, be a teacher? What?
But he loves the animals.
He's great with the animals. He's less great with bringing the animals in contact with the students.
Having the Slytherins with the Gryffindors for this is probably not a great idea either.
But they do it with multiple classes, though.
Yeah, I'd say the percentage of Hogwarts staff that are actually really good teachers is kind of a coin flip at this point. Because Trelawney and all the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers that they had, except for Lupin and like Binns and everybody, none of them seem very good except for a handful.
Yeah, I mean, one of them is a ghost and just keeps
Well, they
going.
don't have to pay him then.
I love
Snape is also
Hermione.
not a good teacher, by the way.
Sorry, Zach.
I was just saying Snape is also not a good teacher, by the way.
Definitely not a good
This
teacher.
is true.
He's not a good teacher.
He's
Well,
great at what he does, but he's not good at teaching.
Yeah.
There are
So,
no professor performance reviews. Everybody has tenure and they don't get fired.
You basically have to get eaten
The
by
education
Voldemort.
system is broken.
Man, we need someone to come in and performance review these people. That would be good, right? Yeah.
They need a new minister of
They need to
education.
be censured.
Yes.
Ugh. So I really appreciate Hermione in this chapter, and I think when I first read this as a kid, I was like, Hermione's being so annoying to Trelawney, whatever her name is, I can never pronounce it, about like this whole divination thing. It's so cool, and now I'm like, I guess because I'm more of a skeptic now, I'm like, hell yeah, Hermione, fight against that pseudo magic. This is awesome. And I actually ended up looking up like arithmancy because it's mentioned a bunch of times, and it's like more. It's from like Greek history, and it's like all this like stuff to do with numbers and actual like not science, but like, you know, it's like more legit than actual divination.
Yeah, it's more
That's
legit
some
kind of
real
magic.
magic.
Yeah. No, but I think it's also a clue to us. I mean, first of all, it's hilarious because we're used to Hermione being so reverent around every single teacher, up to and including Binns. But I think it's also a signal to us that, like, you know, we're not necessarily, you know, Hermione catches on long before Ron and Harry do that Trelawney's full of shit. So I think it would be it's an interesting kind of signal to the reader that, like, yeah, there's more to this and less to this than, like,
except like once every few years or so, you know, she comes up with something real.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not wrong about, like, somebody leaving the class at some point.
Yeah.
She actually makes a number
right
of...
about a lot of stuff.
Exactly. She's right about a lot of things, surprisingly, even when she's not in her actual, like, prophetic state. It's weird.
I noticed another plot hole. When Neville breaks the cup, why doesn't she just, like, reparo it back together? Why doesn't that work in class?
She's a bad one.
She's not good at other kinds of magic. She only can do divination.
Now that I'm thinking about it,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it would break the divination magic if you fixed it, so it's worthless.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, like, is Trelawney a magic user? Because, like, in the Battle of Hogwarts, she's throwing crystal balls at people.
My God, Trelawney is Squib?
Yeah, she's Squib, who got, like, the better deal than Filch did.
She's very specialized.
She's like a vessel, an antenna that just receives messages and says them to people, but doesn't actually do anything.
She can never find her wand. Maybe that's the problem.
Just going back to Hermione, I do think it's so funny every time that she just deflects stupid Ron and Harry from, like, trying to figure out her illogical schedule. Like, they just don't even try to figure that out.
Yeah,
it seems,
and it's so.
Yeah.
And again, what teacher thought that this was a good idea? Giving a student a time turner, letting them exhaust themselves, trying to make it to all the classes. I mean, who thinks this is a good idea?
Dumbledore, should we allow the student to have a basically time machine? Yeah, that should shake things up if Sirius and Remus don't meet.
Always have a backup.
I might find it useful.
If anybody can do it, Hermione can do it.
But I will say that I read this after seeing the second movie, and then I went and read, you know, the books that were out at the time. And I didn't realize what was going on. Like, I realized something was up, and I was like, well, she's doing all these classes. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. I did not think time travel in this magical book, but, you know, there you go.
Yeah, well, we're not told anything about what time turners are. And I think, you know, I have a lot of issues with the time turning thing. And, like, there's a lot to be said for, like, this is just dumb that they would give this to a 13-year-old, no matter how mature she is for school. But at the same time, like, the wizarding world, again, sort of does that kind of thing, you know? Like, they're not, like, they're not, they have certain rules that are very strict, and then they're just kind of like, well, whatever.
Now you have to promise to use this magic for only attending more classes and not going back in time to kill Hitler. All right? You need to promise me that.
Don't turn it too far.
It's actually established that that's not a good idea. It's going to mess you up.
We have time auras,
and then,
just in case.
And then the cursed child happened.
Oh, don't.
Oh,
no.
yeah.
No.
I'm actually going to see it soon.
You know, I heard it was actually impressive to watch in person.
Yeah, that's why I'm going, because of the stagecraft. And anyway, that's a different topic. I'll report back.
Yeah. No, like, I felt like reading... Sorry, Michal.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask about, like, the whole Grimm thing, like, what you guys thought was going on with that at this point.
I don't remember the first time reading through it, really, if I believed it was or not. She doesn't seem like a reliable source at this point, but you never know.
Right.
I mean, being the kid I was when I read them, I was like, oh yeah, of course, like the black dog Harry saw earlier in the book, that's got to be the Grimm. What's this Grimm? And that was, like, really drawing me in.
I was just Grimm Brothers? I don't know.
Some nice little stuff here. Sirius, the name Sirius, is kind of like Grimm and Sirius. So.
Yeah, except his is spelled like the radio.
Sirius satellite.
That was definitely a thing when it was written. No, I just remember like watching the movie and was like kind of just like, oh, well, something bad's going to happen to Harry because it's this year and there's always something bad that's going to happen.
Yeah, the Grimm doesn't really have a timetable, so obviously Harry's going to face deadly adventures throughout his years. So, and it doesn't say you're going to die like tomorrow, so eventually he'll be in death-defying circumstances, so it kind of works out.
Yeah, I mean, she does a lot of like cold reading, John Edwards type stuff, and some of it she could make happen herself, so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, even with, like, today's psychics, like, you can just be like, oh, you're going to meet a mysterious man, and then, like, people will be like, oh, whatever, and then you might actually meet a mysterious man because you just, people
or
just
in your mind, they become mysterious because you were told they would be, yeah.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Also, these kids are in a very contained environment. It's not like that difficult to be like, oh, somebody's gonna drop the class. Oh my god, Oh my god, a kid might lose a pet.
One of you will fail your exam.
Although I did find it like a little. I mean, like it is obvious to like think that somebody old is gonna die soon, but like the offhand comment to Neville about like checking in with his grandma was like, oh my god, sad.
Yeah. Well, Neville's whole life is just a tragedy that nobody really acknowledges for a while.
Neville can't do anything.
Oh, poor Neville, my baby. We also get the start of the amazing kind of like very tense relationship between McGonagall and Trelawney, which is excellent.
Yeah, McGonagall was awesome in this chapter.
Oh, I love McGonagall. Oh.
She's like, why is nobody clapping?
Everybody always claps. What's
Come on,
going
guys,
on?
I turned into a goddamn cat. Come on, give me some credit.
Yeah, I mean, because like when you clap, it brings the fairies back and all that. Maybe they don't like that. But also, because don't they say that there's only like 5 like registered animagi or something? Like, there's not very many. So even like to magical people, it should be really impressive. Maybe to the like people that didn't grow up in the magical world, they go, "Oh, I guess everyone can do this." But
there could be thousands of unregistered ones because we already know many.
And we know that 4 students could just do it themselves without too much hassle.
3.
Yeah, so apparently just no one bothers to register. They're like, fuck it, I'll just keep it a secret.
I mean, it's like, who's gonna know? I'm just a cat. Meow.
It's not like the ministry can track anything.
So wait, why didn't McGonagall talk to Crookshanks and solve this a lot sooner?
Well, McGonagall turns into a cat, and Crookshanks is a Kneazle, so I'm not sure if they can communicate.
McGonagall doesn't speak cat.
Yeah, she still speaks like a human when she's a cat.
Can't Sirius interact with Crookshanks?
Yeah, Sirius and Crookshanks.
Oh yeah, he does.
But I mean, I think that's because Crookshanks knows that Sirius is important to the story. Whereas, I mean, I don't know. Cats don't really like to schmooze.
That's a
They don't.
Ooh, I'm Crookshanks.
I wonder how many wizarding furries actually go through the trouble of turning into the actual animals.
Oh, I didn't want to think
really
about that.
It takes it to a whole new level.
I want to know about the wizard furry god.
That happened in the
Harry
the Magicians. I think we've read that.
Harry Potter, those weird furries.
No!
Harry,
Hogwarts
what is your thing?
after dark.
Ron?
There are these strange
Okay,
creatures.
moving on.
They looked like humans in a suit.
We must investigate. Okay, we're not going down this anymore.
Yeah, put the wands down, everybody.
Okay, the Bogart in the wardrobe, please.
Oh, yes, please.
Who is this? Whose was this? Wait, let me check. Okay, Casey.
It's me. Okay. So Malfoy is finally back from the nurses after his owie with the hippogriff, just in time for Harry's favorite class, potions. Basically, Malfoy's a baby for the whole class, and Harry finally figures out that this is a whole act to get Hagrid fired, and to get Ron and Harry to do some of his...
Why?
Because he hates them.
I don't know. Why are racists mean?
I mean, okay,
why are people terrible? And to get Ron and Harry to do some of his potion meal prepping. As they work, Harry learns that Sirius Black was spotted not far from here. Soon after Neville's successful potion, Snape's punishment for Hermione helping Neville, and Hermione seemingly hiding something from both Ron and Hermione, they head to their defense against the dark arts class. Lupin, who is clearly the hipster cool dad/teacher everybody loves, has a practical lesson. And cue the best movie montage. And we have the wizards versus the Boggart, or Bogart, whatever. Bogarts like dark enclosed places and are shapeshifters that shape into the thing that frightens the wizard most. Lupin goes on to teach them how to fight this creature. Laughter, of course, is the opposite of fear. Ridiculous, I say. Thus, Neville turns Snape into Snape with grandmother's clothing, because nothing's better than a drag queen Snape. Pavardi turns a mummy into unrolled toilet paper. Seamus turns a banshee into a rat. Ron turns a spider into a ball. And before the Boggart gets to Harry, Lupin stops the situation, and the Boggart turns to a glowing orb. Maybe something like a moon. Harry leaves the class disappointed.
No, it's a crystal ball, Casey. Oh my god.
It was an orb.
I'm very scared. As the Death Eaters can attest in the final battle, as Paul is talking about, crystal balls are very scary.
She uses them as weapons, I swear.
It's so good. And then Harry just leaves the class disappointed and was that he was unable to face his fear, whatever that may be. And
I love Lupin.
I love Lupin.
He's the best teacher and the best marauder.
Stupid curse.
I'm going with Sirius on that one, but okay.
6.
No, Lupin.
Sirius was a bully, a privileged bully.
Yeah, Sirius was a mean kid, but okay.
Yeah, but he got better. Yeah, James and Sirius were not great.
I have plenty to say about this, but we can save it for a later podcast. We
can save it for like the 5th book.
Yeah.
When we get there in 5 years.
Snape's worst memory,
Snape
guys.
in a dress. Snape in a dress.
Yes.
I love that.
I love the part at the end.
No, I just have to ask, like when you're reading it, this is very much Lupin being like, Neville is a kid who like doesn't get a lot of, successes, and he's trying to help him and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's true because Lupin's awesome. But how much of it also was him being like, fuck you, Snape? Like, I am a teacher too.
And this is one of those it's like really funny when you're reading it and you imagine it, but like seeing it in the movie is like, yeah, is great. Because it's not just him dressed up in a dress, it's him embodying Snape dressed in a dress. And yeah.
I wonder if you don't do a spell on the Bogart and it just keeps being the thing you're scared of, does it try to do anything to you, or does it just be the thing you're scared of and hope you leave? Because if it's just trying to get you away from it, then it seems like they're kind of picking on
like a defense mechanism.
Creature. Yeah.
Could it kill you? Is that what you're saying?
I guess it is defense against the dark art, so for some reason it's a dark art because it looks scary, but it was just trying to mind its own business and living in a dark cupboard, and then you try to get out of there. Feel sorry for the Bogart.
Mechanism, or is it like they like kind of get a jolt from people being afraid of them?
They get off on it, is what you're saying.
Not get them. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly.
We were saying they gain power from it, nothing sexual.
Yeah, it's not clear. I mean, I think I've actually thought about this too. I feel like Bogarts must be dangerous to a certain extent. We see, obviously Molly Weasley has a bad encounter with a Boggart in the 5th book.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, I know. But like, yeah, I don't know. She definitely doesn't like tell you. She's not like, okay, here's what happens if you don't defeat the boggart.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like a
like,
pest, right? It's like a pest, I think.
It's psychologically troubling nonetheless to be confronted with fears all the time if you don't know how to deal with it.
I mean, I don't know, like, I'm thinking of more the movie, which it seems like I'm doing this whole entire podcast for some reason, but...
Judging you so hard.
Pretty good movie.
I know. I just read the book today.
It's my favorite Harry Potter movie, to be honest.
It is my favorite Harry Potter movie, too. But isn't Harry affected by the boggart taking the Dementor shape, even?
Yes, that's in the book.
Yeah, like, it drains him in the, you know.
So, like, wouldn't a spider still bite, or a mommy still attack, or a Snape still yell at you? I don't know.
But the moon doesn't turn Lupin, although he, deals with it so quickly.
I think it's just a convenient thing that the thing he's fearing is a thing that, like, messes with you mentally. So then thinking that it's messing with you mentally messes with you mentally. But if it was like a
placebo
wolf,
or something?
Yeah. But if it was like turned into a wolf, it wouldn't actually bite you.
Interesting.
I don't know. We could ask her on Twitter, but she has like 6 million Twitter followers, so she probably wouldn't see the question.
Yeah, but we're like part of like the media and stuff. So she's listening to us.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't get that.
We are definitely part of the media.
That's right. Did you like? We have like some subscribers.
Vox Media.
Yep, that's right. She replies to random, so she should reply to us.
.com.
Literally tens of followers.
You don't want to mess with that power, okay? If we organize a boycott, whoo!
Fun fact, did you know that I think it's Pavarti, they're supposed to be twins, but in the first 3 books, JK didn't have them as twins.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Were they just sisters? Or they were just
like the first book?
Yeah, I thought they were called on the sorting.
Yeah, I think they were.
I thought there was a version that, like, they weren't twins because they called them, like, by their last name. So I figured it was just, like, a typo. I thought I remember reading that.
I think I remember them being in the sorting, so I don't know if it was explicitly mentioned that they were twins.
Because Harry notes them because they come, like, right before him in the sorting, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Patil and Potter?
Padma.
Yes.
Oh, Pavarti is the first name. I thought I remember reading that somewhere.
Parvati. But anyway.
I do not have book 1 on me. Otherwise, I would check.
How traumatizing would it be for you when you were a 13-year-old if your greatest fear was in front of the class for everyone to see and look at?
What if your greatest fear was like being seen naked, and then so it just like showed you naked to everyone in the class? This is really irresponsible.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, right? Because all of their fears are very basic. There's a lot more like existential and troublesome
fun childish ones.
Yeah.
Oh, good. No one was abused as a child here.
Snakes. Yeah, it always has to be snakes.
Like I feel like if you did the same lesson with the 7th years, it would be very different.
Or even any kid that like was more abused, like Harry, but when he was a kid, like any of those kids could have trauma in their past that he didn't know about. Bringing that up.
Yeah, they should be doing this one-on-one as like I'm going to like go deal with this privately so that the rest of the class isn't in line behind you if some like horrible shit comes up. Yeah.
But Ron's line about Hermione's greatest fear was so funny. He was like, what's it going to be? A paper where you get only 9 out of 10? And that's probably correct.
Oh, it's absolutely correct.
Well, we find out what it is in the exam.
Yeah.
It's McGonagall saying she failed. So, yeah.
That she failed all her classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she doesn't beat it. She like doesn't.
Yeah.
But she doesn't.
She loses. Very serious fear. I love at the end of the sequence where Neville just lets out this ha and it blows up. I just love that image of Neville with this confident ha! Just blows up.
I love Neville.
Yes, he is the best. But
Also-
going back to what you were saying about Remus just trying to, show up Snape, he's the one who suggested that Neville think of him in a dress. I never didn't
Yes.
think of that on his own.
Yep. And he's just guiding him towards something that he thinks would look funny, which also conveniently would completely humiliate Snape.
Exactly. Nice to know that after all of his trials and everything that he's gone through in his life, he still maintains some of his, childish enthusiasm for basically bullying Snape.
Okay, so for Sirius, it's bullying, but Lupin gets childish enthusiasm. Okay, I see how it is. Okay.
Well, for bullying Snape, that's what I said.
Listen,
Okay.
if Neville hadn't been like, well, you see, this teacher actively terrifies me and tries to make my life miserable and tortures me in front of the class every single day of my life while I'm at this stupid school, maybe things would have gone differently.
Right, because if we're being honest, like, how much has Snape grown into, like, being a great person to everyone?
None.
Yeah.
0%. Actively 0.
He's just like, I loved Harry Potter's mom, and so I'll do, like, the right thing because of that for my life. But I'll still be an
I wanted
asshole.
to bang your mom, Harry. Anyway, fuck you, Neville.
Dumbledore, I'm on your side, but I get to be an asshole, right? Perfect.
Oh, yes, Snape. Yes, of course.
We need to
I
talk
wouldn't
more
be
about
an
Snape.
irresponsible headmaster if I led it any other way.
Snape is terrible.
We need to
So
talk about
Snape
that.
knows about the curse on the Defense Against the Dark Arts position, right? Or because like you always hear about how in the early books about how he wants that job, so he's made that be known or something. But would he know that it'd be a one and done thing?
Maybe he
I
just
don't know.
probably wants to die.
Wait, is there a curse?
Well, he doesn't have to die.
Yeah,
there's a
Yeah,
curse that
Voldemort
like
stays
no
the
teacher
curse.
stays in it for more than a year because he wouldn't let Voldemort teach.
Oh,
It's in the sixth
interesting.
book, I think, when Voldemort comes to see Dumbledore after he's
Okay.
He's looking
and he
forward.
asks for the position, and Dumbledore refuses, and he says, "Well," and then he curses it, basically.
Yeah, we don't know the details of how a curse like that works, but they never have a teacher in that position for more than a year.
I'm assuming Dumbledore didn't go around telling everyone that Voldemort had cursed the job. I mean, then why would
Probably
anyone
not.
take it?
Snape's the smart guy, though.
Kind of a dick
And
move
it's not
hiring
like
all
it-
those people.
And he's
It's
kind
also
of a
not
right
like
hand.
it's that hard to figure out the job is cursed, given that it's been this way for like a long time.
It's like, McGonagall, how long have you been here? 25 years. Snape, how long have you been here? Oh, 12 years. Like, you go around to everybody and it's like, Defense Against the Dark Arts. When was the last time we had someone here more than a year? No, I don't know.
If Dumbledore was a good administrator, he would like make that an official thing. Like it only lasts 1 year. It's a rotating thing. We get a new person every year. That's the official policy.
Teaching the darkness is hard on the soul, so we only allow 1 year at a time.
I think it's pretty well established that Dumbledore is not a good administrator.
Well, let's look at his last two picks before Lupin. Voldemort was pick number 1 for Defense Against the Dark Arts. And Gilderoy Lockhart. Great guy.
Like,
Quality.
I don't know. I do wish that we would get like a side story of him like interviewing Quirrell for that job, like how that went down. I mean, because when we get to Lockhart, he's like, well, no one else wants the job, and this guy, he managed to convince him, and that's the case with several of the other teachers. I think Moody he tries to bring in just because he wants
Another
someone
great
there,
pick,
and
by
then,
the way.
and then ends up bringing in. He goes like, "Hey, Moody, you want to do it? Sure." And then as soon as he leaves, he gets replaced.
Well, Moody agrees to do it for 1 year. I mean, it's hard to say if that's true or not, but fake Moody tells them that he's only going to be there for 1 year. He only agrees to teach 1 year.
Because
So it's
maybe he knows.
Right. Well, obviously, he's not Barty Crouch isn't planning on being there for more than 1 year.
right.
But yeah.
He also says
Wait,
that
so
Dumbledore
since
gave
it was
him permission to
Barty
use
Crouch-
unforgivable curses, which might be
Yeah.
true. I don't know. Dumbledore might have done that.
That sounds like a Dumbledore thing. But
Oh my
I mean,
God, it does.
couldn't
You're
he
14.
couldn't he
We
have
don't have
brought
sex
Moody back
education,
again?
but you might as well learn the way the world works.
You think after like the first year happened, like Voldemort was kind of kicking himself, being like, "Ah, that damn hex, it got me. Damn it."
I forgot about the curse.
Maybe the second year was just Dumbledore being like, hopefully Lockhart will die.
that was the ploy all along.
I think that is what he did. Yeah, I actually buy that.
But yeah, couldn't Mooney have come back again? Because technically it wasn't him teaching all year.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted
possibly.
to, though. Yeah, I think that's
I mean, he spent like 1 year in a box. So.
Yeah, he had a rough year at Hogwarts.
Yeah, the real Mad Eye gets a bad deal in these books. He's supposed to be pretty badass, but we don't see him much.
Plus, Voldemort was back, so more important stuff than teaching.
Yeah, I gotta go lose another limb.
Could be the real Moody didn't want to be a teacher anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know if he accepted the job before or after he was replaced. It's a good question.
I thought it was before, but
yeah, he did agree to teach, and that was how they were like, okay, you're gonna take over this guy. This is a different book, but
yeah, it was right, the whole like dust bins thing that Arthur Weasley. That's when that happened.
Yeah.
All we got.
Anything else?
Did we finish?
I feel good with how much we did.
Yes.
We are consummate professionals as always.
Oh, clearly.
Totally. Thank you all for joining us. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and on our WordPress page, weokpodcast.wordpress.com. And you can always find us on the Podcast of Ice and Fire forum.
Thanks, Nadia.
Thank you, Nadia.
I'm actually really grateful for the reread because I wasn't I really haven't done a proper reread of Harry Potter in a really long time, and I haven't gotten any other new books read in months, but sitting with this series has been really nice, and just getting back into it gives me nice feelings.
Comforting and cozy.
Increasingly less nice feelings now that I'm into book 6. But
yeah, I haven't read them since they came out. I mean, I think it was the 5th book, which I got when it came out, and then I got the other ones after they came out, and then each time I got one, I just gave them to my cousins so they could read them and never saw them again. So yeah,
I mean, the last time I reread was 18 or something like that. So that was
last year.
Nope. 7 years ago.
Oh, I think 2018, which is this year. Not when you were 18.
My son and I were doing the 3rd book, and we're kind of in the middle of it still. We paused a bit for the summer with my mother-in-law staying with us. And we've watched up to the 4th movie. And so I'm remembering, I'm okay, I watched the 4th movie again. And then I'm oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in that 4th book that I've forgotten, all the elves stuff. And I don't remember what's going on. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
Yeah, there's a line in book 4 that is not a big deal in terms of the story, but it's a big deal in terms of character that I completely I gasped when I read it because I was I cannot believe that just happened. I completely forgot, and yeah, so
no, book 4 is one of my favorites. I got to watch the 4th movie with Greg while he was watching it for the first time, and that was hilarious because he hated that movie.
That movie's a shit show.
Forget the Lord of the Rings watch with Casey. We need to get the Harry Potter watch with Greg and just hear him get angry.
Oh my gosh, we need yes, we need a fresh movie watch with him.
I don't think he's watched the 5th movie yet.
Was he just yelling at the screen because he was every time that they were being still kind of like you, sort of, and so why don't you ask me to the big dance, Ron?
I basically the premise of
it. Trying to be Harry or Hermione?
Haircut, so except Hermione's beautiful.
Hermione can do no wrong, except for dating that meathead. I mean, that was obviously.
Oh, I think that was a good decision.
Cormac McLagan.
No, I mean she should have branched out, but that guy is kind
of. Hey, Victor Crumb is good people.
Yeah, Crumb is great.
Yeah,
clearly, it's a little simple.
I'm pretty sure he's evil.
And
no, he's not.
Crumb's good.
He's evil.
He was evil for like 2 seconds in the thing, and that was it.
Well, he wasn't evil. He was just controlled. It's nice.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly. He was under the damn Imperious curse.
Yeah, so it's his fault that
Victor Crumb apologist here.
But his whole look and his Eastern European accent, it's all shady.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
Sounds too Russian to me.
He didn't go to Hogwarts. We don't associate with people that don't go to
nose.
Hogwarts.
Coroner must be dangerous.
Well, not the
Throw a crystal ball at him.
I think
it's really hilarious at the Quidditch World Cup because Fudge is like, I've been trying to talk to the Bulgarian minister all day and he doesn't speak any English. And then after Bulgaria loses the World Cup, the minister's like, well, that was too bad. And Fudge goes crazy because he's like, well, why are you making me sign language at you all day? And he's like, because it's funny.
Crumb definitely has no Quidditch IQ, though, because he just caught the snitch when they were losing. Why would you do that? That makes no sense at all.
Because the rules of Quidditch don't make sense.
He could probably tell that they were going to lose anyway.
No, you have to at least give the option. Like, there's no win unless unless you're in on Fred and George's bet. There's no benefit to losing.
Right. If you are losing by that much, you basically just have to start beating up the other seeker and hope your team comes back.
They should look into betting irregularities in the market there because he threw the game on purpose for gambling purposes.
Oh, I think they had plenty going on in that situation when Ludo Bag went around anyways. So
stand up guy.
I hear Victor Crumb bought a nice mansion after that game.
I wonder if pro Quidditch players are as rich as like other professional athletes in the Muggle world, and they live flashy lifestyles.
It seems to be like the only entertainment they have. Right?
Yeah,
like they read the Daily Prophet and they obsess over Quidditch. They don't really do TV or anything else.
Yeah,
or there's radio, I guess, right?
They have the radio, yeah.
But you don't hear about any like radio stars or anything.
Well, I mean, Lockhart, I think we're supposed to take away was pretty wealthy.
Well, by the 90s, video had killed the radio star.
Wow.
Goodness.
Wow, that joke dropped like a lead balloon. Fuck.
I could barely hear it. Stop.
Glad I joined in.
Well, you had some zingers.
That's true.
Yay.
Just more Dumbledore impressions. That's
Whoa, Dumbledore.
Does Book Neville become ripped? That's all I'm saying.
Ooh, good point. We have no idea if he is in fact as sexy as he is.
I feel like it's implied no.
He has enough strength to take off a snake's head, so
that's true.
We get that one class where they learn Quidditch at the start, but is there like a general physical education at Hogwarts?
Well, they don't even learn Quidditch. They just like learn to go up and down in a broom, right?
Yeah.
So do they do calisthenics?
In book 5, when they disband all the clubs, the only other like major club that people seem like sports club that people are worried about is the Gobstones Club. So I don't really think that
the what?
Yeah, those are the nerds going, oh gosh, I really hope they don't get rid of Gobstone.
What will I do on Tuesday night?
That sounds like they do have dental apparatuses in this world.
Oh, goodness.